We stopped doing experiments. 5 words said almost casually by the person running AI for one of the largest insurers in Asia Pacific. For a decade, the industry has been addicted to pilots, proof of concepts, innovation sandboxes, centers of excellence that produced slideware, but never payroll. Meanwhile, the boardroom keep asking the same quiet question. Where is the P&L line? Then something shifted. IAG launched more AI models in the last 2 years than in the previous 6 combined. A claims assistant called Casey, handling real customer conversations, 150 Gen AI activators embedded inside the business, a governance spine built so that autonomy can be earned, not declared. This is what the messy middle actually looks like. Not the hype, not the old outs, the insurer that stopped experimenting and started shipping. Welcome to Scouting for Growth. I'm Sabine van der Linden, where we unpack how intelligence layers get built one frontier firm at a time. My guest today is Willem Paling, Executive Manager at AI and Analytics at IAG in Sydney, Australia's largest general insurer. Willem is the architect behind the transformation that became the anchor case study in our II 2030 Horizons article deep dive, which we published last year. The collaboration which took place between us at Alchemy Crew, which we led alongside IAG, SAS, Assurant, Majesco. And, we presented an executive summit at ITC Vegas in 2025, which was highly popular. In the next 40 minutes, we are going to talk about 3 things the industry keeps ducking. 1, how you actually move from pilots to pipes in a regulated industry. 2, why trust architecture, not model choice, is a real differentiator in the agentic frontier. And 3, the invisibility threat that nobody is pricing. Because when AI agents start shopping for insurance on behalf of customers, the carrier, the company whose policy isn't machine readable, doesn't compete poorly. It actually completely disappears. This one is for the operators, not the theorists. Willem, welcome to Scouting for Growth. Hi, Willem. So good to speak with you today.
Thanks, Sabine. It's great to be here.
So let's dive into some of the work we've been doing in the past and understanding your journey at IAG and leading AI and driving some major transformation from AI pilot to AI products with some of the conversation we've had also last year. So I understand, Willem, that you lead AI and Analytics at IAG, Australia's largest general insurer. You also have said in the past that IAG has launched more AI models in the past 2 years than it has in the previous 6 years combined. That is staggering, I have to say. I talked to a lot of insurers, but this is incredible. What shifted inside the company? What turned AI from a promised experiment to an operating priority for you?
Yeah, so general insurance has been under pressure, and that's lots of things. So the frequency and severity of natural disasters, supply chain and labor disruptions of COVID, increasing international instability. Customers have felt this through longer repair times, more complex recoveries, and more pressure on service. And so AI gives us the precision and scale to do all this much better and to build a better insurance industry. So within IAG, we stopped doing experiments and we focused on delivery. And we did that with the same expectations we have of any software project. So this was the acceleration of what I'd say first order AI. And it's also a blueprint for the agentic acceleration, which is happening now. So if we go back 10 years, AI was innovation. And innovation teams will build out an idea as a proof of concept. And then they'd shop around the product. And the shift we had was that we set up the factory. We put the same delivery expectations onto our data scientists and machine learning engineers that we have for software engineers. And so we embed them into the same planning process. Models were built with a clear purpose, clear business value, clear path to deployment. And with all of that, they got deployed. The other thing is governance. Governance is slow when you're doing it for the first time or you're doing it once a year. When you're doing it every month, it runs like clockwork. People know what to do. And so now, as we focus on agentic AI, the tech is so new. We all know how to build websites and apps, and we expect every project to succeed. But with AI, we're going to make mistakes and we will learn. But just as we were with that first order AI, we're going to be best served by skipping that pilot phase and delivering AI products into production with the expectation that we deliver value from the first day. And so the tipping point was really that the necessity, the capability, the operating readiness all came together at once. The industry needed new ways to improve outcomes for customers. The technology became genuinely useful, and we were all organized to deploy it properly. And so that's when AI stopped being just interesting, being innovation, and becomes about the outcomes that we deliver. And that's when our customers feel the benefit.
Wonderful. We both were at ITC 2025, and you helped me with Scott to convene over 50 global insurers, technology providers, innovation leaders within a room. And we had the support, for example, of SAS, Assurant, Majesco, and we built a thesis around AI Horizon 2030 and build some perspective of what AI would mean by the end of 2026. That was not a webinar, right? We were having really tangible conversation. We were pressure testing some concept across the sector. What was for you the single most surprising consensus or disagreement that emerged from that room?
What surprised me most was how quickly the conversation had moved beyond models. So you talk in a technology forum and you are often talking about models. Talking in an insurance forum, there's not a lot of talk on model capability or the limitations of models. People could see the same future. They can see that future of AI playing a central role in claims servicing, in distribution, in underwriting. But there was real variation in how quickly people thought that would become commercially meaningful and how far the autonomy will go, how soon. So what people were really focused on was not the models themselves, but what it takes to operationalize them. And so how we deliver reliable AI systems with the appropriate oversight, how we build the harness around the models in a way that we get consistent, high-quality outputs, how we build transparent, trusted, compliant AI systems in restrictive regulatory environments like California or the EU. And so that was the real insight, that the frontier is no longer just the model capability. It's whether you can industrialize AI with trust. And so in insurance, I think leadership, and what was clear from that summit was leadership is becoming less about access to models and more about whether you can turn them into operational systems that the business, the regulator, and our customers can rely on.
So you are also launching a white paper right now, Willem. You are actually diving into how organizations are, in your space, actually, how you are pulling ahead around AI and how you are using the most advanced models within IAG. But those with the strongest trust, architecture, data foundation, and governance disciplines, are few. We know that already within the industry. And that is counterintuitive, right? For an industry that is chasing the latest model release. Why is the operating environment around artificial intelligence right now most important than the AI itself?
It's because the model is only a small part of the system that actually creates value. So in insurance, the harder problem is everything that we put around it. So the quality of the data, how AI fits the workflow, how you monitor it, how you explain what you did, where a person's going to step in, how you make sure the output is consistent and reliable over time. And so that operating environment is what turns an impressive model into something that the business can actually depend on. An example I like to use is if you put an insurance decision like coverage or liability into ChatGPT or Claude, and you prompt it with the right context, you'll get good output. It's remarkable. It feels like magic. It feels very easy. But you do that 10 times, and behind the scenes, you're going to have 10 different decision processes. So that's not a system that will build trust with our customers. And the same thing can be said of people. So if people aren't trained, if they don't have a process to follow, they're going to take different approaches to the same problem. So this matters in insurance more than other industries because so much of the work is high consequence. We're dealing with claims, pricing, coverage. We're communicating with customers who are recovering from loss. And the decisions we have, they have a real impact on people's lives. So our industry has built the systems to deliver consistency in process and decision-making over a really long time. And we're not just going to throw that out and just take the output from a model. So if we're going to succeed at handing these decisions over to AI systems, the rigor needs to be built in so it advances and improves insurance. So the monitoring, the explanations, the consistent process, the reasoning traces. Without these components, AI is just a proof of concept at best. And at worst, it's no more than a party trick. So the organizations that get this right, they'll be able to hand over more of the process to AI sooner. And so they'll deliver better customer outcomes. They'll remove friction, improve consistency, support clearer communications, support their people to spend more time directly helping customers or applying judgment where it's needed, and much less time assembling context or ticking the box on compliance. I think it's worth thinking if one person gets this wrong, it's a localized problem. If you get it right with AI, you're getting it right at scale. But the opposite's just as true. So you get this wrong, you create noise, inconsistency, and risk at scale. So for me, the trust architecture isn't separate from the value creation. The trust is what turns AI from an impressive model into something that really improves insurance at scale.
This is incredible. And you also, it sounds like describing a culture shift at IAG, moving from project-based AI pilots, which was, activities of the past, to establishing AI products with reliable monitoring, feedback loops, and measurable performance gain backed in. So I'm thinking here, for insurers still running isolated proof of concept, and we still have quite a lot in the industry doing that. What is the hardest part of making that leap from experiment to operation?
When we're doing an experiment, an AI team often owns the idea. When we're in operation, the business owns the outcome. And so the change from pilot to product isn't just a technical change, it's an organizational change. AI transformation is not just tech deployment, it's not a technology upgrade. It changes workflows, it changes controls, it changes roles, and it changes accountability. So the teams we're asking to adopt AI, they're busy running the business. They're often under real operational pressure. They're focused on helping customers recover from loss. So the change only works if it solves a real problem for them and if the business is ready to own it. So in transformative AI deployments, solving the cultural and operational changes is at least as difficult as solving the technical problem. I think smaller incremental AI implementations are easier because they'll usually optimize an existing process rather than redesign it. So in motor insurance, for example, an AI system allocating repairs to a repairer can improve precision and scale in a really important operational decision, but it doesn't change much around the surrounding process. Other use cases might remove part of a process like fraud triage, or the early generative AI use cases in underwriting and claims where unstructured intake gets converted into structured data. Those cases are really valuable, but they don't fundamentally reconfigure how the work gets done. So the harder, higher value, more transformational AI implementations are the ones that really reshape the workflow itself. So if you think about AI agents supporting claims lodgement, validation, liability coverage, now you're not just introducing a tool, you're redesigning a process. You're rethinking who does quality assurance. You're putting new supporting technology and controls around the work. So the people who used to perform the process may increasingly become the people supervising and assuring decisions made by AI. I think that's why the leap is hard. So moving from pilot to operation, it means a lot more than just proving the model works. It's scalable data, it's the ownership with the right line of business, it's the embedded controls, it's redesigned roles, and it's building all of that. It's a system that the business can trust and improve over time. And so until all of that happens, you haven't delivered an AI transformation. You've just delivered a piece of technology.
So I would like to go deeper right now on the practical mechanisms. So how AI is currently reshaping the messy middle of, I would say, regulated industry, but also insurance operation, how it's orchestrations of the models. That is what makes it work, and why trust is at the same time simultaneous alongside the speed that we are looking as businesses. So let's talk about that messy middle, that massive friction area, that zone between initial intake and final decisions, where underwriters, adjusters, service teams, for example, spend most of their time wrestling with PDFs, right? Spreadsheets and written notes, engineering reports, medical packets, rather than applying their expert judgment. And when we start talking about AI, we talk about expert judgment, decision-making, critical thinking, empathy. So you argue this is where AI delivers the most reliable, scalable value. Can you walk us through, Willem, what that transformation actually looks like in practice at the frontier?
Yeah, absolutely. So the messy middle is everything between claims lodgement and judgment. And so that takes a huge amount of time. All the kinds of documents you're talking about, PDFs, medical documentation, conducting desktop assessments, reviewing these documents as they come in, or reviewing the entire case file when you pick up an existing claim. What claims consultants have to do is they have to try to reconcile all of that context into an action or a decision. And they have to do all of that before they can reach out to a customer and provide the support that they need. So historically, a lot of experienced team members have spent more time assembling context than they have applying judgment or directly supporting customers. So what AI changes is that it can do the heavy lifting in that layer. We saw that proven very early in commercial insurance with agentic workflows automating underwriting submissions. Generative and agentic AI systems can be configured to extract structured information from documents. They can identify missing details or inconsistencies. They can pull in relevant internal and external data. They can turn a large bundle of material into a concise decision brief. And so instead of spending hours assembling a file, a claims handler or an underwriter can start with a decision-ready view of the case, and they can get straight into that meaningful work. In practice, the pattern that's working for insurers is not just having one model doing everything. It's an orchestrated workflow, and it's often with limited autonomy, which is interesting in the sort of general narrative of agentic AI. We're talking about more and more autonomy. So one system may extract data, another will check the data, another will enrich the data, another will summarize it, another will evaluate the final output. And then the case is handed to a person, or the case is escalated with the reasoning, the evidence, potentially with guidance for review, and the recommended next steps laid out really clearly. And so that's where the trust architecture matters, because every step needs to be traceable, explainable, appropriately reviewed and monitored if it's going to work in production. The value shows up in a few places. You're compressing cycle time because people aren't buried in document handling. You're improving consistency because the preparation of the case becomes much more standardized. You free up skilled people to spend more time on actual judgment, on customer conversations, on negotiation and exception handling. And that's why it's so valuable, because it's these high volume, repeatable, semi-structured tasks. And document processing of this nature wasn't possible with technology just 5 years ago. But the new AI models are really, really good at it, which makes it one of the best places to deliver reliable AI gains. If we get it right, it'll typically be invisible to the customer. So it's like the back of house in the best kitchens or the best hotels. But the customer benefit's really very real. So claims move faster, communications are clearer, the case context is assembled properly, handoffs are cleaner, teams under pressure can stay focused on recovery rather than administration. So a lot of the best AI in insurance is focused on the mundane. It's kind of boring. It's reducing friction in the parts of the process customers probably don't even want to know about.
It's interesting because it means our business are moving more in terms of being more concierge service, or you gave the analogy of hotels, which, is the difference between going for service in an hotel and hospitality, where the hotel already knows what you want. So when you describe insurers now orchestrating those networks of AI agents, each handling a specific task, passing work along the way, flagging problems, you compare it to managing a team of capable junior staff. And I remember a chat where you said, Sabine, they're still like, I wouldn't say interns, but junior people in our teams. That is a vivid metaphor, and I think one probably a lot of people can relate to. But managing thousands of AI agents is fundamentally different from managing people. What does the monitoring, the governance, and the oversight infrastructure looks like when you are running AI at scale?
So a lot of the management, it is different to managing people. A lot of the management is built into the system. So you don't manage the work of an AI agent, which is doing the work of 500 people, in the same way you'd manage a team of 500 people. If you've got really, really capable but inexperienced staff, they're going to need clear guidance on how to do the work. So each AI agent does need a clearly defined role. It needs explicit permissions. It needs known tools. It needs clear boundaries. And it needs a defined escalation path for human monitoring and review. So in practice, the patterns that is emerging is orchestration. So you've got different agents doing specific pieces of work, and you've got policy and guardrails determining what they can do, when they hand off, the guidance they provide to the person or system that they're handing over to, and when they stop. The second thing is observability. So if you want to run AI at scale, you need the equivalent of production monitoring for every meaningful step. So which model and prompt version was used, what data the agent accessed, what reasoning trail or explanation it produced, whether it stayed within policy, how often it escalated, confirmation of grounding, which means that it's confirmation that the material it's relying on, it hasn't hallucinated, it's actually extracted it from a document, how its outputs are performing over time. And so with all of that system, that observability system, that's how you detect drift, reliability issues, policy exceptions, or degradation before they become customer problems. And that's both over time and also with new deployments. So with the prompts that go in, changing a prompt doesn't change the system in the same way that a code change does. It has potential to change it much more materially. So you need that structured observability to reliably deploy new versions. The third component is really bounded autonomy in AI-driven processes. So you look at coding agents like Claude Code, and they're very autonomous and they've got a really broad tool set. And this is not the primary reference and not even a good reference for insurance agents. So some agents will be able to read, extract, classify, prepare. Some can recommend, some can act, but only within pre-approved permission tiers and with strong logging, and often closely following a very tight standard operating process. And so the more material the decision, the lower the autonomy that you give to the agent, and the stronger the oversight, the explanation, the override pathways all need to be. And so it's not necessarily about automating the decision. This is about the autonomy of how AI comes up with the decision, whether it's able to make its own plan about how it will come up with a decision. And in general, it won't make its own plan. You give it the plan. So if something goes wrong at 2 a.m, when it should still be making decisions, the system shouldn't be improvising. It should recognize that something went wrong, and it should route it accordingly. And so it goes to the appropriate human queue. It aborts actions outside confidence thresholds. It leaves a full audit trail. And that's really the difference between producing a demo or a proof of concept and an AI operating model. So when something unexpected happens, it degrades safely and confidently, as opposed to doing the wrong thing at scale. So the infrastructure is really a combination of orchestration, observability, and constraint. And so you get it wrong, you create speed without control. You get it right, you can scale agentic AI with confidence that you're building systems that can be trusted by our workforce, by our customers, and by our regulators.
You have said in the past, Willem, that trust is a speed limiter. You have seen firsthand that moving fast without proper controls create real risk. And you're actually mentioning this right now. Prices can go wrong. Claims can be mishandled. Customer can be impacting. And that means reputation can also be impacted too. Our AG has been a sponsor of the Australian Responsible AI Index, and you have co-authored work on algorithmic ethics, which is so important, I think, in our industry. Governance and ethics, I think, is key when we start building those AI systems. How do you build trust fast enough to not slow down AI deployments, but thoroughly enough to not break things within the organization?
So for the most critical AI systems, and these most critical systems need the highest degree of control. The trust needs to be built into the system at the start, not as a review gate late in the process. So trust is the speed limiter, but it's also what lets you scale. If every deployment triggers a brand new debate about risk, you're going to move very slowly. If you standardize the controls, the monitoring, the explanation, the override pathways, all of that, then trust becomes part of the delivery process rather than a handbrake. In July of last year, the International Association of Insurance Supervisors released an application paper on the supervision of AI as guidance for insurance regulators. And if there's one thing to take away from that paper, it's proportional governance. So not every AI use case needs to be treated the same way. If an AI system is summarizing documents or helping assemble a claim file, the control should be lighter than if it's assessing coverage, liability, or if it's influencing pricing. I think the mistake a lot of organizations make is either being too loose in high consequence areas or too heavy in low risk areas. The organizations that are able to move fastest are the ones that match the level of oversight to the significance of the AI system. I think the other thing is you can plan for full automation, but take incremental steps towards it. So you don't start by handing over the most material decision, but at the same time, don't assume that these decisions can never be handled autonomously by AI. So if you're building with the assumption that one day you'll be able to automate even the most difficult decisions, you're going to be building with the highest level of trust. There are so many stories of AI systems that almost worked, and then overnight, with a model upgrade from Google, Anthropic, or OpenAI, they work flawlessly. So we can expect the capability to get better and better. So you start by instrumenting the system, so measuring the reliability, proving the consistency, giving people clear visibility into how the AI is operating and the guidance for review where human review is required. Then as confidence grows or the model capability improves, you let the model do more and more. What were light reviews once may be full automation in 6 months' time once you've got the confidence. And so that doesn't get established through one governance workshop where you establish fixed controls, but through experience, repeated evidence that means that the system delivers to the high standard that we expect. There's an important human dimension to this as well. So trust isn't just for the regulators or the risk teams. The frontline needs to trust the AI is helping them, not creating rework or hidden risk. Customers have to feel the benefit through clearer communication, more consistent outcomes, less friction. And so for me, trust isn't at all separate from delivery. It's the mechanism that lets AI become operational and useful in a business like insurance.
So it's interesting, right, when we actually start looking at your paper, because in the paper, you highlight that underwriters and adjusters are evolving to something more like portfolio manager or traders. I do believe that the roles of a lot of people within the insurance organization is going to change, making judgment calls with most of the data preparation and case assembly handled by AI agents. So our roles are going to change, our titles are going to change, but also the volume of work, right? The type of things we are going to do would be judgment, investigation, managing large portfolio of activities. I often talk about this human-agent ratio, right? Some tasks will probably require very few agents to multiple people, like complex claims, or other tasks like maybe in sales may require one individual with many agents. So that is fundamentally redesigning the role of every individual in also regulated industries. So that have existed for decades. How do you bring your people along the way on the journey without losing their expertise or their trust? Because right now in the industry, a lot of people are scared to become irrelevant.
I think the first thing is identifying and respecting what the expertise actually is. So in insurance, the highest value expertise, why these people are valuable and have that experience is not because they're good at typing notes or reading PDFs or assembling case context across 5 systems. It's the judgment, it's the negotiation, it's customer support, it's exception handling, it's knowing when something doesn't look right. And so the opportunity with AI and the way we need to make sure our people understand it is to take more of that assembly work away. So these experienced people spend more of their time on the parts of the job where their experience, their expertise really matters. There's also a necessity in this, not just an opportunity, in that insurance has real workforce and capacity constraints, especially in claims and service when volumes spike or specialized skills are hard to scale. In property insurance, where you have a cat event, you have cyclone, you have a flood, you can't scale the workforce in the same way that you can scale AI. The papers are clear that AI can provide that elasticity during demand surges and reduce the dependence on backfill in stretched parts of the operation. So part of the reason roles are changing is that AI lets what is scarce expertise go much further. So it does mean that roles change. So as AI does more of the preparation and case assembly, people spend more time supervising, intervening, making the higher judgment calls. So the goal is not to preserve every task in the old role, it's to preserve and elevate the expertise inside the role. The second part of that's trust, and people will only adopt AI if they can see how it got to an answer. So they can challenge it when it's wrong. They can feel that it's reducing rework rather than creating hidden risk. And so that's why all the explainability, the override pathways, the monitoring, the human accountability matter just as much for workforce adoption as they do for regulators. So if frontline don't trust the system, the transformation is going to stall. They'll work around the AI systems and the value won't materialize. The third thing is that the change has to happen in the workflow and not in the abstract. So the best way to bring people along is to start with real cases where AI removes the friction they already feel. So document handling, all of that are things they often don't like doing. And then you're able to build it out from there.
So now, Willem, let's talk about what keeps insurance CEO up at night. We've seen over the past few weeks that we have seen personal AI agents taking briefs from customers, then discovering, comparing, and purchasing products and services, through Shopify or Pinterest, right, in the United States. And now we are wondering what it's going to look like in insurance. We have seen Tuo in Europe. We have seen Insurify leveraging OpenAI to start approving the first AI insurance, products through ChatGPT. So if AI assistants decide which products a customer sees, a few players win most of the business while others become invisible, right? In this new generative AI search engine, AEO, GSO environment. How real is this threat and how soon will it come?
The threat's real, but it's uneven. And insurers need to be taking it seriously right now. We're already moving into that world from browsing to a world of briefing, where customers are increasingly asking AI to do the discovery work for them. That doesn't mean every insurance purchase is about to become fully autonomous overnight, but it does mean the front door is starting to shift. And in distribution, that matters a lot. So if an AI system becomes the first place that a customer goes to compare options, then it starts to shape who is visible, who is invisible. It's not a major distribution channel yet, but at the same time, it's not theoretical. So OpenAI have about a dozen approved insurer-built apps inside ChatGPT. So Visa and MasterCard have already moved to build payment and tokenization infrastructure for agentic commerce. So it tells you the broader ecosystem's preparing for AI, not just to recommend and support discovery, but to actually transact. The commercialization of all this is interesting as well, in that OpenAI are launching ad products. I'd expect Google have that in their roadmap. You look at Google AI mode, they've already got search results sitting alongside it, which look the same as ad placements. I expect that'll come soon. So my view is that discovery and comparison will move first, especially in simpler personal lines, home, motor, travel, the products where the purchase journey is already more digital and the decision is easier to structure. Then more complex products, advice-heavy channels, higher emotion, claims-linked conversations, that'll all move more slowly. So I wouldn't say all distribution is going to be disrupted in 2 years. I think it's more AI influence over distribution is happening now, and the full transactional capability will expand from there. So there's two things that insurers need to do. Right now, they need to prepare to be legible to machines as well as people. And so that means machine-readable product information, clear coverage logic, accessible quote and bind capabilities, all of that. So there's kind of the capability that supports that generative engine optimization, which is just making sure the content is accessible. And then there's the ability to transact. So I think it is a two-speed disruption. In the next couple of years, AI becomes a much more important discovery and recommendation layer. And then over a longer horizon, it can become a transactional layer as the payment rails, the trust standards, the quoting capability all mature.
So what I hear is when we think about insurance, we need to make sure our products and probably what we call retail products are first discoverable, so machine readable. They are quotable, so API ready environment, which means, we need to start using more readily the cloud native environment. And thirdly, it is bindable, that we can actually help the client buy the product in millisecond, not minutes. And also we need to make sure we look for adverse selection. So then we actually acquire the right customer, the good customer, which means we have to have really clear understanding of our data foundation, our customer risk profiles to be able to do that. Now, Willem, when you think about the paper you have written, you're actually trying to shape a practical playbook, build where proprietary data creates durable advantage by accelerated commodity capability and co-create with partners, I would say in weeks, right? Between 12 to 16 weeks cycles. At the same time, when we think about, you mentioned OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, Google, we have Microsoft Copilot, all those platforms are entering direct partnership with, small number of global players or global insurers. We have seen this in the news. How should an insurer decide what to build, what to buy, and who to partner with when the technology landscape is shifting at speed?
Simple question. Build where the source of advantage is unique to you. So you buy where the capability is already maturing, becoming standard, and partner where the speed, the learning matter more than the ownership. So build is interesting right now in the space where AI is having the biggest impact is in software engineering. So the cost of build is going right down and the pace is really accelerating. So in insurance, the strongest build cases are the ones where your proprietary data, your operating process, or your regulatory environment either make the solution really hard to replicate, or they require a solution where you need a level of oversight that you're only going to get from building something yourself. So buy is the right answer where the capability's sort of horizontal, not where you're going to win. So things like general productivity tools, contact center AI, model observability, generic summarization, evaluation layers, a lot of orchestration utilities are increasingly becoming just standard capability. And then partnership matters most in the middle ground. So where the capability is strategically important, the technology is moving too quickly to lock yourself into a long internal build, or you may be lagging with the expertise required to be able to get it right. And so that's where a co-create model in short cycles makes more sense. The reason the direct AI lab partnerships are getting attention is they can give you more than just model access. Everyone's got model access. They can give earlier visibility into the roadmap, and they give product access to a talent brand that can attract the best AI engineers in the world, better alignment to enterprise security and governance needs, and in some cases, some influence over how the tools evolve for regulated industries. I think Allianz's partnership with Anthropic is a good example. So it's explicitly focused on workforce enablement, so the agentic operations, the regulatory compliance. And then Travelers in February, they launched their AI claims assistant with OpenAI. It's another case of the carrier pairing that frontier model capability with a very specific operational use case, and so they're not treating the model as generic. I think the mistake insurers often make is confusing the ownership with the advantage. So owning the code doesn't automatically mean you own the moat. I think more than ever, we see SaaS valuations tumbling because AI coding tools mean that code is not a moat. The moat is more likely the data. Sometimes it's the workflow. Sometimes it's the speed at which you can operationalize the capability safely. So I wouldn't be asking, can we build it? But that's not the first thing to ask. I'd ask, where does the advantage actually come from? And then you make the build buy partner call from there.
So Willem, I remember that you flagged a new threat landscape that rises in parallel with automation. AI-enabled fraud, deepfake, agent-to-agent manipulation, and data concentration risk. And I know customers and organizations are really fearful of, the reverse side, the other side of the story, around AI. These aren't theoretical, right? They are emerging now. We see, networks of bad actor leveraging those capabilities to penetrate organization. What is the most underestimated risk, and what should insurers be doing about it today rather than waiting?
The most underestimated risk is AI on the other side. So AI attacking the evidence layer of insurance and producing claims submissions, documents, images, video, even identity signals that look the same as genuine identity signals, while insurance are still playing catch up on detection. So if you think back, even would have been about 8 years ago, we started to use voice biometrics as authentication control, and now AI can replicate the voice biometrics. So we can't be continuing to play catch up. What makes that risk more serious is that it compounds as we automate more of the workflow. So the danger is not just that one fraudulent claim gets through, it's that the bad evidence gets processed faster, more confidently, and at greater scale through intake, triage, claims handling systems with reduced human oversight. The good news, though, I think, is if we plan for it, it is very solvable. We shouldn't assume we'll always detect every synthetic image or document after the fact. Instead, we've got to raise assurance at the point of capture and through the workflow. And so stronger identity checks, stronger liveness checks, tools that verify provenance and authenticity when evidence is created, that treats low assurance inputs differently from trusted inputs. So as the automation rises, the assurance has to rise with it.
If you fast forward to 2030, Willem, and the vision in the paper has played out, AI native operating models, hyper-personalized products, continuous pricing, embedded distribution, autonomous agent workflows, what does the winning insurer looks like, right? And what actually is the most important that we need to consider? What did they do in 2025 and 2026 that makes the difference? Tell us.
The winning insurer in 2030 will be AI native in how it operates, not just AI enabled in a few functions. So it'll use AI to do most of the coordination, the routine execution across claims, underwriting, and service, while people are focused on judgment, on exceptions, and on customer support. And they will remain accountable for decisions. Products will be easier to understand, easier to compare, and increasingly designed for AI-mediated distribution as well as human purchase journeys. I think what will really separate that insurer is trust. So strong monitoring, explanations, override pathways, governance, and human-aligned autonomy are going to matter more than access to any one model, because by then the model capability will be much more widely available. I think what made the difference is those insurers in 2025 and 2026 acted early on the foundations. And so they automated the messy middle, they organized their unstructured data, they embedded trust into their AI products from the start, and they redesigned roles around human AI handoffs and prepared their products and channels to work in a world where AI helps decide what gets bought. And so that's how they built the advantage that compounded.
So my final question, Willem, for the insurance leaders, technology builders, and founders listening to this. You've just co-authored one of the most comprehensive perspectives on where AI in insurance is heading. If they take away one action, one commitment from this conversation, not a strategy slide, but something to do on Monday morning, what should this be?
For founders and tech builders, I'd say this: spend as much time understanding insurance as you do understanding AI. As coding agents lead the way with increasing autonomy, it's almost counterintuitive how restricted most AI workflows should be in insurance. The most valuable products in insurance won't be the ones that feel magical in a demo. They'll be the ones that reduce friction in that messy middle. They improve consistency. They help insurers hand over more of the process to AI with confidence. So if you want to build for insurance, learn the decisions, learn the workflow, and design the trust architecture that gives the social license that's needed for deployment. For insurance leaders, my recommendation is always to get your hands dirty. So the most advanced AI agents are the coding agents. So get a subscription to Claude Code or OpenAI Codex and build out an AI agent. And so watch the coding agent, use the tools, feel the power of agentic AI. This is what makes it real.
Thank you, Willem, for joining me today. A real pleasure to have you today with me. And that is a wrap on one of the most honest conversations on AI in a regulated industry here in insurance you will hear this year. Here's what I'm taking away this time around. The companies who win the agentic frontier are the ones with the biggest models. They are the ones who earn autonomy instead of declaring it. The ones who build the trust architecture before they turn on the digital labor. The ones who treat their governance spine not as a brake, but as the fuel line. Willem's bet is simple. Stop running experiments, start running pipes, make trust the product, and build for a world where your policy either becomes machine readable or it becomes invisible. That is not a roadmap line, that is the insurance intelligent layer. Shipping. 2 quick things before you go. 1. Subscribe to Scouting for Growth wherever you listen and leave us a 5-star rating. 30 seconds for you, a meaningful lift for the show, and a gift for the next business operator who needs to hear this conversation. 2. Go connect with Willem Paling on LinkedIn. He's one of the clearest thinkers on AI operating models in our industry. You are going to want him in your feed long before the rest of the market catches up. And everything he said is relevant for any regulated industry player. I'm Sabine Vanderlyn, and keep scouting, keep building. See you on the next podcast discussion. I can't wait.